It took place in 1983 in a small village north of Jiangzhou, China. Lu and his father, Mr. Yang, were worriedly walking around outside their house. Mr. Yang felt strange in his heart when he saw his son so nervous, so he constantly comforted him. "Mei is in good health. There will be no issue." However, Lu's nervousness was not unusual given that he and his wife Mei had been married for 7 years but had no children. The entire family, including the elderly father who had been waiting for their daughter-in-law Mei to become pregnant, and the time had finally come for her to give birth. And the midwife went into the room all morning and still didn't see anything, so the father tried to comfort his son, telling him to calm down and not to worry too much. Finally, near noon, there were children's cries from inside the house, which delighted Lu and the old father. Hearing the child's cry, everything seemed to become more beautiful and stronger, and the hearts of both the Chu's family, father and son, seemed to burst with joy as a result of happiness. After 10 minutes, the door opened and Sen, the midwife, stepped out. "Aunt Sen, is our child born?" Lu inquired cheerfully. They were speechless when they learned that Mei had given birth to their first fat son, and Lu was as happy as if he had caught gold. Miss Sen had been a midwife her entire life, and she knew that while Lu was not young, he was a first-time father, so she advised him not to be too hasty and to keep the child's mother from going out in the wind. Lu was so excited that he didn't listen to what Miss Sen said next and ran into the house to see his wife and children. With joy-like celebration, Miss Yang finally had a grandson. He prepared a large red envelope for Miss Sen. However, after a few sentences, the old lady Sen pushed open the red envelope and hurriedly left. "Remember to keep the windows closed at night when giving something for the baby and mom to nourish their bodies." As he watched her rush out of the house, Mr. Yang wondered in his heart, was there something wrong? However, the family and Lu, who were now surrounded by the newborn and Mei, quickly dismissed these minor concerns. Everyone was concerned about Mei's health because this was her first child, and everyone was overjoyed to see their first grandson. Lu used to lose his temper a lot because Mei couldn't have children, but now he appeared to be extremely happy with everyone, and he always had a smile on his face. The child had grown stronger and stronger with the help of every family member, and Mei's body had also recovered. But on the night the baby was born, the moon was very full and something strange happened. The couple was sleeping with their baby in their arms one night. Lu and Mei were fast asleep. Mei was startled awake by the baby's cry, which sounded very eerie and strange, and it was frightening. Mei initially assumed it was her son who had awoken in the middle of the night crying. She didn't know if the child was hungry or in pain. But when she opened her eyes, her son was soundly sleeping next to her. But the crying continued in waves and didn't stop. Mei considered getting up to listen more carefully, but her body appeared to be pressed by a heavy object, rendering her temporarily immobile. Immediately following that, Mei felt a small black shadow crawling over her. She was not sure if it was a dream or not. Mei couldn't move, but she could roll her eyes down and see a baby crawling on top of her. The child appeared to have been born recently, but the entire body was grey, with a few blue veins on the head, and it appeared very frightening. What was more terrifying was that the child had a mouth, and it was covered in layers of sharp little teeth. He was a child from hell. The child gradually climbed onto Mei's chest, eventually removing her shirt and biting her nipple. Her chest was painfully pierced by the small fangs the infant was sucking. Mei had now no idea how long the baby had been sucking milk violently like a demon, and she had gradually lost consciousness. Mei didn't wake up until the next morning. Everything that happened last night was dreadful. Mei still had a lingering fear from last night's horrifying scene. She thought it was a nightmare, but the dream was too real. Lu awoke some time ago, desperately clutching the child on the ground. What happened? It was strange because their son had been so healthy since birth. He had never cried before, and no one knew what made him cry so hard. Fearing that Lu was clumsy and didn't know how to care for the baby, May got out of bed and continued to care for his son. But the child kept crying, and he kept crying louder and louder, making May impatient and heartbroken for the little child. The child's grandmother was wise and knew that the baby would not cry for no reason, so she advised the couple to closely monitor the baby. However, when the tiny duvet was opened, even elderly people such as the baby's grandmother were taken aback. It was red and swollen on their son's fragile neck, with small holes in the same place. They appeared to have been bitten by small teeth. When May saw this wound, she immediately remembered a nightmare from the night before. She told her mother and Lu about her ordeal last night. After she finished speaking, she felt a slight pain in her chest. When she opened her shirt, she discovered a row of tiny teeth marks. Hadn't she had a dream last night? Didn't the child's grandmother immediately recognize the newborn ghost, as the old people in the countryside used to say? She stated that in rural areas, if a newborn dies, it cannot be buried or burned. Instead, most of them are found in the open field and discarded. It was claimed that these children had suffered too many injustices and that they must be exposed to the sun in an open area to be exonerated. However, some dead babies were born in clouds, moons and stars, and because these places were rich in yin, they became a kind of newborn ghost, carrying heavy resentment. This type of newborn ghost harbored a deep resentment. They relied solely on nature to find milk everywhere, infecting young mothers who had recently given birth nearby. According to May, she was targeted by an infant ghost. At the time, she had just given birth. When she noticed that the couple was both scared, she quickly said something else so that they wouldn't be too concerned. They followed the child's grandmother to the deserted grasslands west of the village, where children's bodies were frequently dumped. Surely a dead child was thrown nearby, she said, and that child had turned into a ghost infant, and we could tell them apart. Lu and his father spent the night in the grasslands, where they discovered a dead child lying alone on the moor. The features on the dead child's face were hideous and frightening, and his mouth was still stained with blood. The Yang family's father and son couldn't bear what it had done to their children and grandchildren, so they went out and found a lot of wood and placed it on the ghost child. Following that, a fire burned that horrifying ghost child, who appeared to be very frightening. The newborn ghost never appeared again. Lu's son stopped crying, but the baby's body was always a little weak and sick, which the grandmother attributed to the nun's mother's collision. Later, with the help of the midwife Sen, they learned how to better care for the child, and that dreadful story was never told again. Miss Sen also stated that she recently gave birth to a child for a family in a neighboring village, but the child died shortly after birth. Miss Sen recognized this as a bad omen, but no one believed this and did not expect the dead child to actually become a newborn ghost.